that we need to continue to stand strong to defend everybody's rights and freedoms.
Hello folks, how you doing today? Hey, it may be a little windy today, but you know, I'm kind of up here at the airport, and if you notice, those two planes are still here. I want to address that. You know, we try and say that we're not conspiracy theorists, but that one was. They were right on that one. We were conspiracy theorists. And I even said at the time that, you know, these planes are here. They're regularly here. And that these ones are usually here for maintenance. I'm going to turn the camera down like this. Pretend I'm looking at my truck. I've said this many times. Well, that, you know, I was using them as a prop. But everyone took it as I was being facetious. I wasn't being serious. Well, I was. These planes are here regularly. This is a regular place for them to come in for maintenance. Anyway, that's not what today's video is about. Today's video is about CO2. And it's it's funny I'm here at the airport for this one. You see, earlier, well, what was it, last week there, Chrystia Freeland went on about talking about the fact that she doesn't own a car. So it's easy for her and her family not to build up too much CO2. You know, trying to guilt people into the fact that, you know, we have to own cars. Well, I'm going to prove to you that she burns more CO2 in a single day, in half a day, in 1 hour and 20 minutes than I have in this truck in 5 years. 5 years I've driven this truck. You see, Chrystia Freeland does an amazing thing. She works in Ottawa but lives in Toronto, and her family lives in Toronto, and her kids live in Toronto, and she's home on a regular basis for her kids, and that's actually commendable. As much as I don't like what she does with our government, I can commend her on her parental responsibilities and being responsible for them, for the kids. I can appreciate that. Her making the way to make it home for her kids on a regular basis. It's just Murphy's Law. There's a plane starting up in the background. Anyway, so in order for her to do this, she has to fly to Ottawa on a regular basis, and she usually goes for 2 days at a time. And I went and looked up how much CO2, because if you go to TripAdvisor and you say, hey, I want to fly from Toronto to Ottawa, TripAdvisor will tell you how much CO2 on average you will be responsible for, which is 66 kilograms of CO2 to fly to Ottawa from Toronto. Oh, Winmore, that's nothing. Well, no, actually, you see, it's 13,200 kilograms of CO2 to fly from Toronto to Ottawa. The 66 part is divided by 200 seats because the plane is 200 seats in there. So they divide it up and they play with the numbers and say, oh, you know, you're only responsible for 66 kilograms of CO2. Well, that's not true, because it's not always a full plane, and you could choose to drive there with a lot less CO2 Sorry, I'm looking at the plane. You could choose to drive there with a lot less CO2 emissions than you do if you fly. So that plane flying from Toronto to Ottawa produces 13,200. Whether anybody's on it, one person's on it, or 200 people are on it, it's still 13,200 kilograms of CO2 to fly 1 hour and 20 minutes. You see, my pickup truck here, my Tacoma, she's not exactly aerodynamic, okay? And she doesn't exactly sing fuel economy, if you know what I mean. But I have 40,000 kilometers on this truck, and I Googled how much a 2019 Toyota Tacoma burns in CO2 per mile. And then I had to break that down, kilometers, la 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 la, boppity bop bop bop. Okay? 5 years I've owned this truck. Well, a little over 4.5, sorry. 4.5 years, I put 40,000 kilometers on it. That comes to 13,000, oh, sorry, it's 483 grams of CO2 per mile. And it comes out to about 13,200 kilograms of CO2 I produced in this vehicle in the last 4.5, almost 5 years. We're gonna say 5 years just because we're being generous on a bunch of numbers here. We're just kind of giving ballparks. Well, there's a huge difference between Freeland and myself. You see, I have to pay $65 a ton on this CO2 that I produced. She doesn't pay jack because I have to pay the CO2 that she produced in her flight as well. And so do you, and so does everybody else, because she submits that as an expense for her job, which is fair. Oh God, that's so loud. I'm trying to fight the wind and the airplane. So she submits that for a tax receipt. So the taxpayer, or not a tax receipt, she submits that as an expense report. So the taxpayer has to pay that for them. So we're paying that tax as well. But you see, Air Canada, whom she flies on, doesn't actually pay carbon tax. No, they have a climate action plan. Yeah, where we heard that one before. You see, they won't tell you how much they've invested, but they invest into a management company to help manage forest projects and forestry zones and wilderness, natural reserves. But you see, all these reserves already exist, and these forest plans already exist. So they've created a management program for something that's already being managed to manage the management program. I'm not sure how this works, but because they do this, they have this company called Choose. They don't have to pay carbon tax. Well, I'm still paying $65 a ton. $65 a ton times, 6.5 tons. Oh Lord, I don't know. What is that? 65 times 60 tons. Yeah, way too much for my math brain. So, when she sits there and spouts that she doesn't own a car and that her carbon emissions, oh yeah, by the way, that flight is one way, 13,200. Don't forget, she's got to come home. So in half a day, in 1 hour's time, she burns more CO2 than I do in 4.5 years of owning my truck. And you wonder why people don't trust your carbon scheme and why people keep telling you you need to knock it off. Welcome to the Fringe. Welcome to the Fringe.